Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We are tackling a super critical and honestly fascinating topic today, the ethical dimensions of consumer influence. Specifically, we're looking at neuromarketing, which is often referred to as Buyology. If you're not familiar, Buyology is all about tracking biological responses. Think eye movements, heart rates, even brain waves, to really understand and deeply influence consumer behavior. Now, when you possess the psychological tools to do that, it's a real game changer. The question suddenly isn't just about what you can do to sell a product, but what you absolutely should do. Ethics have to become the absolute paramount foundation. So, we're going to break down the exact framework our source material provides for navigating this incredibly complex landscape.
To get our heads around this, we'll take a structured approach and break things down into 6 quick areas. We'll start with the ethics of Buyology, then evaluate marketing strategies, look at the role of personal beliefs, dive into religious influences on strategy, check out organizational culture and ethics, and finally, wrap up with making the final choice.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the ethics of Buyology, and alerting the participant. Okay, let's dive into this. Before you even think about sketching out a campaign that taps into consumer psychology, you literally have to hit the pause button. This module acts as a deliberate, massive wake-up call to recognize the immense power and the responsibility you hold. It explicitly alerts participants to the profound ethical issues inherent in consumer influence. It's all about making sure we actually recognize the heavy weight of the strategies we're deploying.
The source material frames ethics as this significant, ever-present challenge that just have to be actively managed. I mean, let's be real, tampering with human psychology carries heavy ethical risks that we simply cannot ignore. Think about it, exploiting a consumer's subconscious fear of missing out, or using subliminal sensory cues to trigger anxiety that only your specific product can soothe. That isn't just a clever tactic, it's a complete ethical tightrope. The module demands that participants confront this reality head-on.
Moving right along to Section 2, evaluating marketing strategies, which is really the core task here. Now, what's really interesting is how abstract ethics suddenly turn into a super concrete operational question. Which strategy should you actually apply? We aren't just looking at ROI or click-through rates anymore. You're presented with different marketing strategies, and you must make a choice that is heavily filtered through a very specific ethical framework. To answer that pressing question, the source mandates that any marketing tactic has to pass through 3 sequential checkpoints. Step 1, evaluate according to belief. Step 2, evaluate according to religions. And Step 3, evaluate according to organization culture. This forms the required methodology for testing the ethical validity of literally any consumer influence campaign.
Let's unpack that first step in Section 3, the role of personal beliefs or the individual lens.
So this is the micro-level checkpoint, strategy versus personal belief. Before applying a tactic, you've got to first weigh it against your own foundational individual belief system. Say your strategy involves burying hidden subscription fees deep in the terms of service just to boost revenue. Well, this checkpoint asks you to look in the mirror and ask, does this tactic align with what I fundamentally believe is right? It ensures the individual marketer's conscience is always that first barrier.
Next up is Section 4, religious influences on strategy acting as the moral compass.
So, the crucial point here is how the source text explicitly calls out religions as a necessary, distinct filter. It directs participants to evaluate which strategy to apply according to their religions. And this is a super important distinction. While personal beliefs can sometimes be a little subjective and flexible, checking a strategy against formal religious frameworks provides a much more rigid, established set of moral doctrines. It acts as a formalized moral compass to see if the strategy actually holds up under established teachings.
Which brings us to Section 5, Organizational Culture and Ethics, looking through the collective lens. And this brilliantly illustrates the potential tension we often see between the individual and the collective. On one side, you have the individual compass made up of personal beliefs and religions, and that's weighed against the corporate compass, which is the organizational culture. You might absolutely veto a manipulative neuromarketing strategy based on your own conscience, but what happens when you work for an agency whose entire cultural ethos is just growth at all costs? Reconciling your personal ethical standards with the broader values of the organization is a massive part of this evaluation task.
Finally, Section 6, making the final choice and achieving strategy alignment.
Let's see how this all builds together. For a strategy to be considered fully ethical under this framework, it requires complete, 3-way alignment across belief, religions, and organization culture. You absolutely cannot sacrifice your personal moral compass just to meet ruthless corporate demands. But at the same time, you can't just ignore organizational values because of a personal religious stance. The chosen strategy has to sit perfectly right in the center, fully satisfying all three of these essential criteria.
Which leaves us with an incredibly thought-provoking question to wrap up our explainer. When biology successfully influences a consumer, whose ethics are truly driving that strategy? Is it the personal belief of the marketer, the moral weight of religion, or the overarching culture of the corporation? It's a really compelling puzzle that dictates the ads you interact with every single day. Thanks so much for watching this explainer. The next time you feel mysteriously compelled to click buy, take a second and ask yourself, whose ethics are you really responding to?